So welcome everyone to today's topic. As the President and the Chairperson said, we are going to discuss about motivational interviewing. For the information of the PGs, we will briefly touch upon the stages of change model given by Prochaska and Ricomendi. Basically, whenever somebody is planning a behavior change, be it stopping an addiction or be it starting an exercise, whatever. So when any behavior change has to start with any person who is trying to make a behavior change has to go through these various stages in the cycle of change. Initially, most people have to start with the pre-contemplation, because in that stage, people are absolutely not thinking about making a change at all. They are happy with the way they are. They are not thinking about, maybe if you take the case of alcoholism, not stopping alcoholism, and not even that, they are not even thinking about seeking any treatment, anything like that. Now, most people after that, they move to a stage of contemplation. Contemplation is a stage in which some thoughts, some motivation about change appear in their mind. Maybe in the morning when they get up, they feel that I am having the tremors again, I am having a nausea, yesterday I broke so many plates, yesterday I had to borrow money, so I should do something about this. This kind of thoughts may come to their mind in the morning. But as the day progresses, when they are with their friends and all, then again, like craving sets in, peer pressure sets in, and they may think, okay, I will drink for today more. And after that, they may again drink. So that kind of two-mindedness is there in the stage of contemplation. After that, again, after the person has sustained some losses, some harm because of the habit and all, they may go to the preparation phase, in which the person more actively starts thinking about making some change. The person starts inquiring about where is treatment available, what are the modalities available, what is the cost, etc., etc. And after that, the person may enter the action phase, in which the person actually makes the change. Like in the case of alcoholism, the person stops drinking. And after that, suppose that action is maintained for at least 6 months, then we can say that the person has entered the maintenance phase, like the change, the action has been maintained for at least 6 months. But it is not like a happily ever after kind of story, like that is why it is a cycle. Because most people, maybe after 6 months, after 1 year, after 2 years, usually there is a relapse. The person goes back to the whatever habit he was trying to escape from, in this case, alcoholism. Again, but the person fortunately re-enters the cycle. The person again goes through pre-contemplation, contemplation, like that. And at times people can go back also, like from contemplation to pre-contemplation, from preparation to contemplation, and that kind of movement is also possible. Now, it has been found that, like in various studies, that 80% of people who seek, I think some people have to mute.
I think.
Yeah, okay. This 80% of people who seek addiction treatment are actually in pre-contemplation or contemplation. That is, they are yet to make up their mind fully to seek the treatment or do anything about their drinking habit. So what we can do here, like only 20% is motivated, 80% is still not ready. So what we can do here? So the usual spontaneous response from the side of professionals, especially in the Indian context, is the righting reflex. You want to set right the person, the illness. You start advising him, you start frightening him. Usually even the family members even say, "Only pedipikkanam." So that kind of thing. Well, liver cheethiyavum, chattavum, chorajardikkum, wife kalanjittu pogum. All these kind of advices, threatenings, frightening, and all that is what we usually resort to. And as Dr. Dukma rightly said, that does not work. What do you think? Once you start dictating to a person that this is the way you should be living your life, what will their response be? Will it be like this? I hope it is readable from your screens. Yeah, obviously not. Nobody is waiting for a Mishiha to give them some insights, some advice, some guidance about how to lead their lives. So what happens when you appear there with the writing reflex is, like I told you about the stage of contemplation. Actually, it is a stage of ambivalence, like the person has thoughts in support of the change and also thoughts against the change. That is akin to a meeting going on in the person's mind. Some voices are saying, yes, we should do something about this. We should seek treatment. We should stop drinking. At the same time, there are also other voices which say that no, it is okay. Everybody is drinking. You work hard throughout the day. You deserve a drink in the evening. This kind of. So both voices are there in the person's mind. That is ambivalence. That is contemplation. Now imagine you appear there with your writing reflex. Like you want to frighten the person, you want to motivate the person, you want to advise the person and all. So what will happen to this meeting? Unfortunately, when you appear there as a proponent of the yes aspect, inside the person's mind, the opposite message will get something. The person will start thinking the other way around. The ambivalence will shift in the wrong direction. The person will move against the change. That is why the writing reflex, the advising, frightening does not work. What is there for us to do? 80% is not motivated, and if you do the writing reflex, that will have the opposite effect. So what is the solution? That what is the weapon that we can use? And motivation interviewing is the answer here. So the basic of motivation interviewing is that I told you about the ambivalence. Like the person has two minds, right? The in favor of change and also against change. So there are two important technical terms here with respect to motivation interviewing. Those thoughts, those words that which are there in the person's mind in favor of change, they are called change talk. I should do something. I should stop this. I should seek treatment. And the opposing voices, which are in favor of the status quo, that we should go on the way we are currently doing. That is called sustain talk, change talk and sustain talk. So basically what motivation interviewing does is, motivation interviewing tries to tilt the balance in favor of change talk. So in a motivation interviewing, what you are doing is you are using certain interview techniques so that in the person's mind, in the person's conversations, change talk increases and sustain talk decreases and disappears. This is motivation interviewing in the simplest terms. There is some underlying spirit of MI. We'll talk about the spirit of MI and the processes of MI. Processes are what we are doing, what you actually do when you are sitting with the patient and doing MI. The spirit means these are some of the principles that should be at the back of your mind when you are doing MI. You will not be doing this, but everything you do when you are doing MI should be based on, depend on these principles. So the acronym to remember, that is PACE: partnership, acceptance, compassion, and evocation. I will explain two of the terms here. Partnership. So partnership, the metaphor given by the authors of the book, Miller and Rolnick, is that it is not like wrestling. It is not a fight. It is not like, okay, you are not motivated, fine, let me make you motivated. So you are not there in a fight with the patient to defeat the patient and win the competition and make the person motivated, make the person change. It is not like that. The motivation interviewing is more comparable to a dance in which it is complementary. The two of you are supporting each other. The moves are complementary. So it is not a fight. It is like a cooperating adventure. Then acceptance, all of you know, like you should not be judgmental. Okay, you are a drunkard, you beat your wife. That kind of attitude shouldn't be there in your mind. You should accept the person as he or she is. So only then you can succeed in motivation interviewing. Compassion, all of you know, compassion, empathy. I won't go into those details. Evocation is the fourth underlying spirit of motivation interviewing, and that is also very important. What evocation means is, as I already told you, there you are not giving the advice. There is already change talk in the person's mind. So you have to evoke that. You have to bring out what is there in the person's mind. It is not like you have to do something new. You have to bring him some insights from outside. So what evocation means is, it is like drawing water from a well. The water is already there. You have to just draw it out. And it is not like you are showing the light. You are not a guru. You are not a Messiah showing the light to the patient. So that I hope all these four terms, the basic spirit of motivation interviewing is clear. Now I will give you an example of how to do an evocation. Suppose there is a patient who has alcoholism and the patient has also diabetes mellitus. So how do you do an evocation here in this patient about the relationship between diabetes and alcoholism? So usually what we do is, if you drink, you may forget your medicines, your food habits may change, you may not be able to adapt to the diet, things like that. But that is not evocation. In evocation, what you do is you ask a question, an open-ended question. What do you know about the relationship between alcoholism and diabetes? So basically the patient may already know something. He may know that when he had alcohol in the past, his glycemic control had worsened. He know about various other people whose diabetes had worsened when they were drinking and improved when they stopped it. So he will tell you that. So that is how you evoke. You are not giving advice. You are not giving information. Whatever the patient knows, you are just bringing that out. That is evocation. That is one of the basic principles of motivation interviewing. Now moving on to the four processes, four steps through which motivation interviewing proceeds: engaging, focusing, evoking, and planning. Again, here we will discuss the first and the third. The second and fourth, we will only briefly touch upon. They are not that relevant, especially in our kind of setup. Engaging, what that means is like we are going to develop a rapport with the patient. Like we are setting the scene to work with the patient together in the journey. So there are some early traps that you should avoid when you are doing motivation interviewing. These are the kind of things that you should not do in the beginning, at the time when you are developing a rapport with the patient. Assessment trap. Like for example, when a patient comes to you, you have that form to fill, right? Do you have a family history? Do you have neuropathy? Do you have any legal complications? Do you have melena? Have you taken treatment before? What medicines you have had? All this kind of. So when you do that, like as I told you earlier, that is not a partnership, right? There you are the professional and the person is giving you like answer, single word answers to your close-ended questions. So basically that takes it away from the partnership position. So that is detrimental to motivation interviewing. So it is better if the patient is not motivated enough to postpone detailed assessment. All these kind of points you can defer to a point till after the patient has developed some motivation. Expert trap. Like I am the expert in this field. I have been treating patients for so many years. I know so much about alcoholism. That kind of attitude should not be there. Again, that is against the partnership that we discussed earlier. Labeling trap. What this means is like sometimes the patient may come and tell you, I am not an alcoholic. I am not a drunkard. So that kind of thing. So then you say that no, according to DSM-5, you fulfill these criteria. So you have an alcoholism. That kind of discussion you don't get into. Again, that is detrimental to that partnership aspect I told you. So you can just say that we are not here to like label somebody. We are not here to decide what name we should call somebody. We are just here to examine what kind of problems you have and how we can solve them. That kind of reply you can give. Blaming trap. Again, the patient may say that it is not my fault. It is my wife's fault. Whenever I drink a bit, she starts calling everybody. She even called the police. Or maybe the person may say it is my mother's fault, my father's fault. So what you can do is like this is not a court. We are not here to find fault. We are here to find solutions. That kind of response you can give. So these are the traps you should be avoiding in the beginning. So what should we be doing? I told you what you should not do. So what you do in the engagement phase in the early stages of motivation interviewing, it is called reflective listening. Many of you would already know that, especially for the pages. I will briefly talk about reflective listening. Basically, this is Thomas Gordon's model of listening. When is listening complete? When is communication effective? When does the communication serve its purpose? So basically, there are 4 steps that are happening when somebody is talking something to another person. There is some idea in the speaker's mind. There is some concept in the speaker's mind which the speaker wants to convey to the listener's mind. So the speaker says that through his mouth, through words, right? Then the listener listens those words, and also the listener gives some interpretations to those words. But it is not that easy. These things can go wrong. In all these 4 phases can go wrong. Like the 3 phases. The speaker has meant something, but when he expresses that, he may not be able to do it properly, and he may say something else, something tangentially related. So the meaning may change. Or the listener may be distracted. The listener may be paying some attention somewhere else, or the person may be sad or angry, things like that. Depending on that, what he perceives may change. It may be different from what the person told. Even after hearing that properly, depending on the person's personality, mood, past experiences, etc., the person may give different meanings to what the person heard. So it can go wrong in all these 3 phases. But communication is effective, complete only when the exact meaning the speaker had in mind is conveyed to the listener. So what we do in reflective listening is you keep informing the speaker, that is the patient. You keep giving a feedback that you have understood the person. You have listened actually what the person is talking about. So there are 2 kinds of reflections. So what you have to do is, as I told you, you have to keep on giving feedback to the person that you have understood what the person is saying. There are 2 kinds of reflections. They are called simple reflections and complex reflections. So this metaphor should explain what that means. In simple reflection, what you do is you simply repeat what the patient told you. I have tremors. Okay, you have tremors. That kind of answers you give. You may be paraphrasing, or you just simply repeat the word. That is okay, but even better is complex reflection. In complex reflection, you comment not only about what the patient told you, but also the non-verbal communication, the expressions, the gestures. You can give a feedback on these also. The feelings that are expressed, by the patient in his words. What are the underlying meanings of what the patient is telling you? All this information you can include in your reflections, then that become a complex reflection. Let us see an example of a simple reflection and complex reflection. The patient says, I am feeling pretty depressed today. So for that, a simple reflection would be, you are feeling kind of down. So like it is the same thing, you are just paraphrasing that. That is a simple reflection. On the other hand, a complex reflection would be, something has happened since we last talked. So you are probing, you are assuming things. These kind of reflections are called complex reflections. One example from like alcoholism. The patient says, my hands shake in the morning. Then a simple reflection is, okay, you have started getting tremors in mornings. While a complex reflection would be, so you might be finding it difficult to brush your teeth. So you are interpreting what the patient told you. That is a complex reflection. So like we discussed about the engaging phase, that is you should avoid certain traps, and also you have to do a lot of reflective listening. Focusing actually means when the patient comes to you, there are lots of issues. There is a financial issue, there is a legal issue, there are marital issues, so many things. But like you have to bring the focus to the topic of addiction. But usually when in our setup, when you are doing in a de-addiction ward or you are in psychiatry, it is mostly evident what you are going to focus on. So we will not give much, we will not discuss this much because it is usually evident from the context in which you are doing the motivation. So we will move on to evoking. Evoking, as I told you earlier, what we are doing here is we use certain techniques. You talk to the patient, you respond to the patient in using certain techniques so that the change talk increases and the sustained talk decreases and disappears. So to increase change talk, there are three things that you have to do. First one is you have to be able to recognize change talk. When the person is producing some change talk, you should be able to identify, okay, this is a change talk. So that is the first thing. Then suppose you are not getting enough change talks, then you have to do some evoking. You have to make the person produce some change talk. And also when the person gives you some change talk, you have to respond accordingly. You have to respond in the proper manner to whatever change talk the patient is giving you. So we will discuss these three in some detail. So about recognizing change talk, basically there are two types of change talk. Change talk is classified into two. Please go. Preparatory change talk and there is mobilizing change talk. Preparatory change talk and mobilizing change talk. In like basically this kind of division is based on like in which stage of change the patient is. Preparatory change talk usually happens in the first two stages, pre-contemplation and contemplation, while the mobilizing change talk happens in preparation and action stages. Again, this is the poster of an old Walt Disney movie, but this is relevant here because that darn cat, that is a mnemonic that you can use to remember this classification of change talk. Darn is basically the preparatory change talk and cat is mobilizing change talk. We will discuss what each of those letters mean. Preparatory change talk, as I told you, is of four types. Darn, desire. The actual desire means the patient tells you that I want to make this. I have a desire to make this. I want to stop drinking. I would like to remain sober for 3 months, things like that. So when the person says something like that, that is an example of a desire change talk. A means ability. The person says, if I want to, I can make the change. I am confident that I have the ability to make this change. I can like discontinue friendship with those who drink. I could take some other route. I will not pass through the front of the beverage. I could take some other route. This kind of ability change talk they can give you. Reason why I want to make this change. That kind of change talk also the patient can give you. If I stop drinking, I will be able to retain my job. I would probably have better sleep if I stop drinking. This kind of change talk, if they give, they are all indicating reason. Need means like the person says that I want to make the change now. There is some urgency. It is not next year. Now I have to make the change. There is a need for urgent steps. I need to like stop now. I have to get admitted today. That kind of conversations that the patient has, then you can say that the patient is having need kind of change talk. Now moving on to the mobilizing change talk, as I told you earlier, that happens in the action and planning stages. So action, preparation and action stages. So the CAT stands for commitment. C is for commitment. Commitment, the person promises you something. I will get admitted. I promise that like I will take dialysis from regularly. These kind of statements show that the person has commitment. Activation is also kind of promises, but they are less strong than commitment. I am willing to, I am ready to do this. So the person is not very sure, but still there is some kind of assurance from the patient side. Taking steps, the person tells you, I have already done something. I already deleted the numbers of my friends who drink. I already like cancelled my military quota that I get as a part of my pension from the army. That kind of steps, if the person says so, that is all taking steps. So that is done, CAT, the various kinds of change talk. Now, basically, like the patients do not read this kind of material and come to you and give you one change talk like that. You don't get very clear-cut change talk from the patient's conversation. They will be embedded in a lot of other material. So you have to be able to recognize what is called embedded change talk. Let me give you an example. I really don't want to stop smoking, but I know that I should do it soon. I have tried before and it is really hard. So basically, I should do it soon. That kind of need change talk is there. I have tried before. So there is some kind of taking steps kind of change talk is there. So it will be like this only. You won't get separate sentences as I gave you in the example. So from these kind of complex wordings, you should be able to recognize like the proper change talks. Now, how to evoke change talk? Suppose the patient is not giving you enough change talk, how to evoke some? One of the techniques is to use open-ended questions. All of you know what is open-ended, what is closed-ended. So for each of these change talk, desire, ability, reason, need, for each of these you can raise specific questions. For example, for desire, you can ask, how would you like for things to change? Then the person would say that I would like to have a more consistent job. I would like to have better sleep. I would like to stop drinking. This kind of change talk the person might give. Tell me what you don't like about how things are now. These kind of questions you can ask. Going on to ability, you can ask, what do you think you might be able to change? If you really decide to want to stop smoking, how could you do it? So like what all ability the patient has, with all these responses the patient will give you in response to these kind of questions. Reason, why the person want to stop? Why would you want to stop alcohol use? What could be some advantages of taking a morning walk every day? This is about motivating the patient to start daily exercise. Like motivation interviewing, not just for, as I told you in the beginning, not just for addiction. Any behavior change you want the patient to have, you can use motivation interviewing. So this is about exercise. Then coming on to the need part, that urgency part. What do you think has to change now? How serious or urgent does this feel to you? So these kind of questions you will get some change talk in the need category. Another technique you can use is give the person an importance ruler. You can give them a drawn ruler like this, or you can just do it with your mouth. There is no need for any scale or ruler like this. So what you ask here is, like you ask the person, like you want to stop drinking. Out of 10, what marks you will give to that? How important that is for you? So the patient will give you 5 or 6, something like that. And most of the people give 5 or 6. Then you take a lower number. You ask why 5, why not a 3? Then the person will tell you, no, not 3. This is important for me because of this and this and these reasons. So there you are getting change talk. When the person is giving you the reasons, he is getting you change talk. But you should not take a higher number. Why not 10? If you ask that, they will give you the sustained talk. No, it is not that big a problem for me. So you should not do that mistake. Looking back is another technique. What you can do here is you ask the person, like 5 years ago in 2015, what were your hopes about 2020? Then were you able to accomplish those things? If not, why? So if you ask like that, obviously when the person gives you the answer, alcohol, drinking, all this will be part of it. Looking forward also in 2 types, like with changes made, with no changes made. You ask the patient, this is 2020, in 2025, how do you see yourself? If you continue drinking, how do you see yourself? If you stop drinking, how do you see yourself? So when the person gives you answers to these, at least some change to you will definitely get. So we discussed about recognizing change talk, evoking change talk. Now, like when you are getting some change talk, you have to respond accordingly, as I told you earlier, how to do that. Again, there is one mnemonic for you, years. E stands for elaborating, A for affirming, R for reflecting, S for summarizing. Elaborating, affirming, reflecting, and summarizing. So in elaborating, basically, as the name indicates, you are asking for more details. You are asking for more information. Like the patient gave you some change talk, you want the person to speak more, speak in more detail about that particular topic. So you get more and more change talk. Ask for clarification. For example, the person may say that like my health has gone down because of drinking. Then you can ask, what do you mean by poor health? Then the person will tell you like my sleep, my appetite. So you are getting more and more detailed change talk. Ask for a specific example. Like the person may tell you there has been issues in my job, in my workplace. You ask, for example, what happened. So again, when the person gives you the example, he is giving you another change talk also. So that is that way you can increase the volume, the quantity of the change talk. Affirmations, all of you know, you are like congratulating the person. You are like it is not like you are considering the person as a drunkard or something. You are congratulating, appreciating for whatever good information, whatever appreciable information the person is giving you. Commenting positively on various attributes of the person, statements of appreciation, all this comes there. Summaries, there is the reflecting, we already discussed, EARS, reflecting we already discussed. I am not repeating that. Yes, summaries, this is a very important step here. In summaries, as the name indicates, you once in a while summarize. After talking to the person for some time, you have got a lot of change talk. So you summarize whatever you got and organize that and like tell it back to the patient. There are different kinds of summaries. One is called a collecting summary. In collecting summary, like it's like making a bouquet. That is what I told you now. Like the patient keeps giving you one flower at a time, one change talk at a time. So you arrange that into in a beautiful bouquet and giving back. Like you organize whatever information the patient gave you into some proper paragraphs and you are telling it back in a summarized manner. That is a collecting summary. Linking summary. Linking summary means when the person is giving you a change talk now, you link that to a change talk the person gave you earlier. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പൊ നിങ്ങളിപ്പോ പറഞ്ഞു വരുന്നത് നിങ്ങളുടെ എപ്പോഴത്തെ ഭാര്യയായിട്ട് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് വഴക്കുണ്ടാവുന്നുണ്ടെന്നാണ്. ഇന്നലെ നിങ്ങൾ എന്നോട് പറഞ്ഞു നിങ്ങളുടെ ആദ്യത്തെ ഡൈവോഴ്സിന് കാരണമായത് നിങ്ങളുടെ മദ്യപാനമായിരുന്നു ആണെന്നാണ്. So that kind of thing. So you link the different change talks and you provide that as a linking summary. Transitional summary is like maybe at the time of discharge or at the time of when you are sure that the person is motivated, you want to start some intervention program. In that kind of stages, when you are moving from one phase to the other, in such kind of situations, you can use the transitional summary where you like summarize all the change talk that you got before that. That is transitional summary. Now, confidence talk is also there. Change talk is about the importance part, like how important it is for me. Confidence talk is about like how confident about that ability I told you earlier, that ability. Because even if the patient feels that I should stop drinking and I should do it now, like that need and desire both are there. But if the patient has no confidence, especially about smoking and all, people say, even if I want to, I won't be able to. That kind of low confidence, if it is there, you have to elicit confidence talk also. So the technique are like it is same, like this confidence ruler, like as we told for the importance ruler, reviewing past successes. That is one technique. That means like in the past, like most of the patients would have stopped for some time in the past also, like at least for some period after a hospitalization, after accident, something. So how did you manage it that time? What all skills you used? What all support systems you used? So if you clarify those successes, then the patient's confidence may be boosted. What all personal strengths and supports the person has. Like the person may tell you, I stopped smoking 5 years ago because when I decide something, when I put my mind onto something, I can like get it sorted out. That kind of information, if the patient has given you, you can remind them about that. You have such and such strength, so you will be successful. That way you can boost their confidence. Now you can also give information and advice. Suppose the patient has lack of confidence because the person says, whenever I feel anxious, I cannot control. I have to self-medicate with alcohol. Whenever I have insomnia, I have no other options. I have to drink. So in such situations, you can obviously give some information and advice. But again, I earlier told you that this is a partnership. You should not go into the expert trap and all. So how to do that? Now I'm telling you otherwise. But how to go about that? You can do that. You can give information and advice within the context of motivational interviewing also. But you have to use certain techniques. It has to be done in a certain manner. The technique is called elicit, provide, elicit. It is not like you just bombard the patient with the suggestions or advice. You have to use this technique. So what happens here is in the elicit, the first elicit, you have to ask for the patient's permission. അപ്പൊ നിങ്ങളിപ്പോ പറഞ്ഞു നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഉറക്കം ചിലപ്പോൾ വരാറില്ല, അങ്ങനെ വരുമ്പോൾ മദ്യപിച്ച് പോകാറുണ്ട്. അങ്ങനെ പൊതുവെ ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഉറക്കക്കുറവുള്ള ആൾക്കാർ ശ്രമിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞ് വിജയിച്ചിട്ടുള്ള ചില ട്രിക്കുകളുണ്ട്. അത് ഞാൻ പറയട്ടെ, കേൾക്കാൻ താല്പര്യമുണ്ട്? So you are asking for the patient's permission. After that, you are giving the advice. So that way it will be more acceptable, and that way it will be more in tune with that partnership and more that we discussed earlier. Explore prior knowledge, as we told in that diabetes and alcohol example for evocation. What they already know about that, you elicit that. After that, you also put some points. So that way it will be more of a discussion. It will not be a one-way advice giving. Now, after eliciting, you provide the information. When you are providing the advice also, it is not like you do this. That kind of dictating is not there. You give them various options. Okay, people usually do this, some people do this, some people do that. That kind of options you give, and then you emphasize the personal choice. You are just giving them the options. You are just giving suggestions. It is up to the patient whether they should choose any, whether they which one they should choose, or whether they want to choose any at all. All these are the patient's option for freedom. That kind of atmosphere you create. That way, it will not feel to the patient that you are giving advice, you are being the expert. After that, you again elicit, like, what is the patient's opinion about this, whether the patient would like to add anything to that. This kind of questions also you can ask. So that is elicit, provide elicit for giving information and advice. Now, when the patient gives you confidence talk, again, you have to respond the way we respond to change talk, elaborating, affirming, reflecting, summarizing that years that we spoke regarding change talk. There is one more technique, that is raising possible problems and challenges. Like the patient says that I am not confident because this may happen. I may go to some party, then people may tell me to drink, I may not be able. So in that kind of situation, you have to brainstorm with the patient, what all problems you may encounter, then how we can solve that, how we can overcome that. So through discussion also, discussion about solutions to possible potential future problems also, you can increase the patient's confidence. So that is about increasing the change talk. Now we will move on to decreasing the sustained talk. So that is the next step, as I told you in the beginning. Sustained talk, it is again the same classification. Dan, cats, desire. I really like marijuana. Ability. I don't see how I could give up code. Reason. I have to smoke to be creative. Like that. So it is like the same classification is there. Here all statements are in favor of continuing the use, not in favor of change. That is the only difference. So here again, you have to manage with the reflective listening. There are two kinds of reflections that you can use here: straight reflections and amplified reflections. Straight reflection is kind of the simple reflections that we discussed earlier. You are simply acknowledging the patient's disagreement, feeling, or perception. Whatever the patient says, okay, you agree, okay, that is what you feel. Wonderful, okay. Now let us move on to the next topic. That kind of a response you usually give. For example, the patient says, I just don't want any counseling. I ought to be able to handle this on my own. That is what the patient's sustained talk. So how do you do a straight reflection? You don't think that counseling would work for you. So you are not arguing, you are not explaining that no, counseling helps and things like that. You are just agreeing with the patient. So that there is no confrontation, you move on to the next topic. Who are you to be giving me advice? What do you know about alcohol? You have probably never had a peg, especially the female psychiatrists here may be hearing to this dialogue very frequently. So how to respond to a comment like that? It is hard. It is hard to imagine how I could possibly understand. That's the kind of straight reflection you can give. Amplified reflection, here you, as the name implies, you have to exaggerate, amplify, when you are giving the reflection. Reflect in an exaggerated form. At the same time, you should not be sarcastic. It should not happen. You should give your reflection in an empathic manner only. You should be empathetic when you are giving the reflection. Example, I couldn't just give up drinking. What would my friends think? So if the patient says that, one way of giving an amplified reflection would be, you couldn't handle your friend's reaction if you quit. So that kind of response is an example of an exaggerated amplified reflection. This is the patient has been told that if you smoke, it may cause cancer. So the patient says, those studies about cancer don't really prove anything anyway. That is what the patient says. So to give an amplified reflection to that, it seems to you that lung cancer doesn't really have anything to do with smoking. It just happens. So that is the way you give an amplified reflection. Also, emphasizing autonomy is another technique of dealing with a sustained talk. As we discussed in the elicit, provide elicit. You have to say that it is the patient's choice. It is the patient who has to make the decision. The patient has been given a booklet about the smoking. Why are you giving me this booklet? Are you telling me I have to stop smoking? Response is, it is just information. What you do with it is completely up to you. Naturally, no one can make you stop smoking. So that is emphasizing the autonomy. If you are giving you information, it is up to you to decide to what to do with that. Reframing, that is another technique of dealing with the sustained talk. Reframe, like as the name implies, you are just twisting that information in some more positive way. I don't know if I can do it. It would be quite a challenge for you to do that. It would be some hard work. So you are like giving it a positive twist. My wife is always nagging me about this. So how to reframe that? She must really care about you. That is why like she is nagging very frequently. So that is the technique of reframing. Now there is also discord. Like in the previous editions of this motivation interviewing, there was a resistance, rolling with resistance and all. You may be still studying in some older textbooks. So in this not new, it is about 8-9 years now, of the second edition of this motivation interviewing book, they divided that into discord and sustained talk. So the difference is in discord, that is something entirely different from sustained talk. Sustained talk is, as I told you, it is normal. When a patient is ambivalent, when the patient is in contemplation, there will be some sustained talk. That is absolutely nothing wrong about it. Please mute yourself. Yeah, then the sustained talk is about the behavior. What behavior we are talking about? I really don't want to stop smoking. So that is sustained talk. As I told you earlier, that is normal if the patient is ambivalent. Discord is not about that. It is about your relationship, the relationship between you and the patient. You can't make me. So that is interpersonal. That is not about the original topic under discussion. And this is not normal. That has to be curtailed. That is an indicator of poor prognosis. So what are some of the signs of discord? There is like an open confrontation between you and the patient. There is an argument. The patient repeatedly interrupts you whenever you are talking. The person does not let you talk. The person keeps on defending himself, like no, it is not like that. Or the person is absolutely not paying attention to you. You are talking, but he is absolutely looking at his phone or somewhere. So all these are indicators that there is discord, and you have to react appropriately. So this is a signal to you that you are in the wrong direction. You are not using the techniques of motivation interviewing properly. So you have to change your gears. So some of the techniques that you can use to manage discord include apologizing. Like if you did something wrong, there is no harm in saying, okay, I did not mean that, I am sorry about that. Affirming, as we discussed earlier, if you use some affirmations, that may improve the relationship. Or you can shift the focus, like from whatever topic there is confrontation about, from that you can shift the focus to some other easily workable, some area in which there is some agreement between the two of you. Apologizing. No, sorry, this is the shifting focus. Like the patient tells you, okay, the surgeon said I had to meet you. So tell me what I have to do. Like the patient is referred to you and he is in a hurry, he shows that he is not interested. So you tell him, no, I don't know enough about you yet for us to even start talking about what makes sense for you. What we need to do right now is let us discuss let us have a discussion about what are your issues. So you acknowledge that there is a difference, and then you are leading the conversation to some areas on which you can actually do some work together. Now the final stage is planning. Again, that happens after the patient has become prepared. The patient's ambivalence has resolved. So even I won't go into the details because of time constraints. Usually there is no need for that. The patient himself knows how to go about finding a job or finding new friends or finding some new hobbies, managing time and all. But if there are any deficits, any skill deficits in these areas, you can help the patient there. So I will summarize whatever we discussed so far. First, you have to assess the stage of change, in which stage the patient is. If the person is in preparation or action, wonderful. There is no need for any motivation interviewing. You can directly go to the planning stage. For the patient is in pre-contemplation or contemplation, you have to engage the person. You have to avoid all those expert trap, labeling trap, blaming trap, and all. You have to use lot of reflective listening. Then you have to do the focusing. As I told, it is usually clear there. Then you have to do the evoking. Like you have to increase the change talk, you have to evoke the change talk, you have to respond with that ears and all. Then you have to decrease the sustained talk using again reflection, etc., etc. And after that, you have to move on to planning. And whenever you are giving information and advice, you have to use that provide elicit method. And also whenever there is discord, you have to be vigilant about that, and you have to tackle discord with affirmations or apologizing, shifting focus and all. And whatever you are doing, it has to be within that framework of motivational interviewing. You should always remember the partnership, acceptance, compassion, evocation, these basic principles of motivational interviewing. So it's very quickly about some further learning. This is the book, The Bible of Motivational Interviewing. Anybody who wants that, you can get it online. It is a very detailed book. Lots of practical examples are there. And this is a playlist I created. It was about 7 years ago. Some sample interviews, some sample motivational interviews which are animated and all. You can do that. Even there is William Miller giving a 1 hour talk about motivational interviewing at Columbia University. All these videos you can see there. bit.ly/mi_videos. bit.ly/mi_videos. If you go to that link, you should be able to view this.